I want to, first of all, just remind folks that it was 19 days ago, less than 3 weeks, that the attack took place at Crossroads Mall. The first thing I want to say is to continue to think about the victims of that night. The victims that were attacked, the victims who witnessed, the victims, the employees, the folks that work at the mall, community as a whole. I had an opportunity to speak to many of the victims again this morning. They continue to heal. They continue not only from the physical injuries, but from those emotional injuries. So continue to think about the victims of that attack, and not only those that were, as I mentioned, physically, but those who had to witness that attack. Last Sunday, after Mass, had an opportunity, had a woman who approached me with her young child. The child in her arms, the same child that was in her arms when she was at the mall when she witnessed the attack. She told me how difficult it has been for her to sleep since that night. So the victims, beyond the victims who were injured, please remember them and keep them in your thoughts. And there's a way that you can help in that respect too, and I want to give out some information just to start. There are a lot of people in the community who have wanted to reach out in ways that they can and how they can help with the victims, how they can help with from monetary to counseling and to other issues. You can do something very simple. You can dial 211. 211 is a United Way call. They're coordinating those efforts. My office is also coordinating those efforts if you want more information, the St. Cloud Mayor's office. But 211 is the number you can call. I must mention, though, if it's from a cell phone, it's 1-800-543-7709. We'll have that information available also after. In the events that took place, one of the things that, in talking in particular, and you'll hear from our folks this morning in law enforcement, oftentimes in those last 19 days, people say, well, what have you learned from those attacks? And you look at what I learned, certainly, what the community has learned, is that our first responders are extremely well trained, extremely dedicated to what they do. That night, 127 responders, 127 first responders representing 13 different agencies responded to the mall. I learned that, again, their dedication and their professionalism was clearly evident. I learned also that this community is very strong. And what I've heard since in the last 19 days, the outpouring of support. I've also learned that this community and this state is very compassionate to those who were victims, to the community as a whole. The community remains strong. I'm going to be, what you'll hear this morning, you'll hear from, first of all, our Stearns County Attorney, Janelle Kendall, who will explain her decision in the officer who you have heard I and many say truly was a hero, who happened to be in the right place at the right time, preventing additional injuries and potential loss of life. You'll hear from the St. Cloud Police Chief, Blair, who will describe the events that took place at the mall. You will hear Special Agent in Charge, Thornton, from the FBI, talking about what led up to those events, the investigation as it stands now, and where they will be going from here going forward. As we had said from the beginning, the night of the attack and certainly the next morning, that we were going to have information available to you when we can. We described what took place. As I mentioned on that morning before, and the chief has mentioned many times, what we witnessed on the tape, those tapes will be available to you also. You will see that this morning, and they will also be available for you at the conclusion of this press conference. I want to turn it over to now to Stearns County Attorney Janelle Kendall, who will explain her decision and also give you detail of what took place that night, followed by Special Agent in Charge Thornton and St. Cloud Police Chief Blair Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Janelle Kendall. I'm the Stearns County Attorney. The role of the County Attorney in this matter is to determine if the use of deadly force by Officer Jason Falconer was justified under the facts and circumstances of this case. Reacting as either a licensed peace officer or as an average citizen under these circumstances, deadly force was legally authorized. I will now read you the letter written to Chief Blair Anderson explaining these circumstances. He is the leader of the investigating agency for this officer-involved shooting event, and that is why the letter is addressed to him. This letter will be available to you after this press conference. I have reviewed the extensive investigation completed by your agency into the events of September 17, 2016, in which Avon Police Officer Jason Falconer shot and killed Tahir Ahmed Adan. The law enforcement reports, witness statements, photographs, medical reports, video, and physical evidence of the incident clearly show that Officer Falconer was justified in the use of deadly force. Therefore, no criminal action will be filed. On September 17, 2016, at approximately 8:14 p.m., Adan was at the Crossroads Mall at 4201 West Division Street, located primarily in the city of St. Cloud and partially in the city of Waite Park, Stearns County, Minnesota. He was armed with 2 knives. Dressed in a private security uniform, Adan approached and stabbed 10 people after first asking some of them if they were Muslim. He stabbed or punched victims in the back, shoulder, head, neck, or face. Adan started the stabbings outside the mall near Complete Nutrition, then entered the mall and proceeded down the hallway past Ultimate Electronics and Northwoods Candy Emporium toward Target and Macy's. Video from Unique Electronics shows Adan chasing and stabbing the store employee. Video from Northwoods Candy Emporium shows a store employee pulling down the chain security fence to the front of the store while Adan approached with the knife, which is visible in Adan's hand. Witnesses describe stabbing victims running inside the mall, alerting other mall occupants to seek cover, merchants closing and locking doors, and shoppers hiding with store employees. Officer Falconer, employed part-time by the Avon Police Department, was shopping in Bath & Body Works, just outside Macy's. Officer Falconer holds a valid post license. He possesses a valid permit to carry a pistol, and he was lawfully carrying a Glock 9mm handgun with a magazine of 15 cartridges and 1 in the chamber. His attention was drawn to 2 loud, sharp noises coming from the area outside Bath & Body Works. He observed Adan, dressed in the security uniform, coming toward him in a chaotic environment with many people yelling and running. Adan approached Officer Falconer, who was dressed in civilian clothing, and asked Falconer, "Are you Muslim?" Falconer answered no. Adan then turned away, and Falconer observed 2 knives in Adan's hands. Falconer drew his gun and yelled at Adan, announcing that he was a police officer and ordering Adan to drop the weapons. Adan ran toward Macy's, and Falconer followed. As is shown in 3 different Macy's security videos recording simultaneously from different angles, Adan ran into Macy's down the main aisle. Falconer followed with his gun drawn. 12 different witnesses verify that Falconer was loudly yelling at Adan and others that he is an off-duty police officer and directing Adan to drop the weapons. Just inside the Macy store, video shows that Adon went left into a clothing display area before he turned toward Falconer. Adon laid down on the floor with the knife still in both hands. After 2 to 3 seconds, Adon jumped to his feet and charged at Falconer with the knives. Falconer shot multiple rounds at Adon while rapidly backing up, falling down briefly in the main aisle. After being shot, Adon also fell to the ground. Falconer continued to yell at Adon to stay down and drop the knives. Falconer showed other people in the area his badge and again announced that he was an off-duty police officer. Adon, however, got up again and circled in the area toward Falconer, then running toward Falconer a second time with the knives in his hands. Falconer shot multiple rounds again as Adon ran toward him, initially facing Falconer, then advancing toward Falconer with his back to the bullets as Falconer continued to shoot. Adon went down on his stomach again, still with the knife in his right hand, and eventually got up and crawled on his hands and knees toward Falconer with the knife still in his hand for some time, before finally falling face down on the floor. Falconer then placed himself between Adon and the open area of the mall and waited for police to arrive. Officers from the St. Cloud Police Department and other agencies arrived within approximately 4 minutes in response to 95 separate 911 calls made concerning these events. The autopsy performed on Adon by Dr. Victor Froloff at the Ramsey County Medical Examiner's Office shows that Adon died of exsanguination due to gunshot wounds to the head, chest, right flank of his body, back, and left leg. The shots to Adon's back are those shown on the video as Adon was continuing to advance toward Falconer with his back to Falconer as he was shooting. A total of 10 rounds were fired, 6 striking Adon. All 10 rounds have been accounted for. A toxicology report shows that the only substances in Adon's body were nicotine, caffeine, and an antifungal medication. The toxicology report on Officer Falconer showed no chemicals present. The 2 knives used by Adon in the mall attacks and the multiple charges toward Falconer were Farberware steak knives, one approximately 10 inches long with a 5.5-inch blade, the other approximately 9 inches long with 4.5-inch blade, both appearing to be from the same set of knives. Minnesota Statute 609.066 relates to the authorized use of deadly force by police officers. It states the intentional discharge of a firearm in the direction of another person constitutes deadly force. The use of deadly force by a peace officer in the line of duty is justified when necessary to protect the peace officer or another from apparent great bodily harm or death. During all aspects of this encounter, Falconer engaged Adon from the perspective of a police officer, albeit off duty at the mall, announcing repeatedly that he is a police officer and showing Adon and others present in Macy's his wallet badge during the encounter. When Falconer's actions are evaluated as an authorized use of force by a peace officer, they are justified and lawful. Since the purpose of Falconer's visit to the mall was not in the line of duty, Falconer's actions are also evaluated under Minnesota Statute 609.06, stating, reasonable force may be used upon or toward the person of another without the other's consent when the following circumstances exist or the actor reasonably believes them to exist, including when used by any person in resisting or aiding another to resist an offense against that person. The intentional taking of life of another is not authorized except when necessary, in resisting or preventing an offense which the actor reasonably believes exposes the actor or another to great bodily harm or death. Officer Falconer's use of deadly force was clearly authorized under each of these laws. He was faced with an individual in a busy mall area in possession of 2 knives, 1 in each hand, brought to Officer Falconer's attention by the individual himself after he asked Falconer if he is Muslim. Officer Falconer observed the chaotic environment prior to this approach with people running and screaming in fear. Upon following Adon into Macy's and repeatedly announcing his authority and commands to drop the knives, Adon ran toward Falconer with the knives raised 2 separate times, then continued to crawl toward him with a knife in his hand even after being shot during 2 separate prior charges at the officer. There were numerous other mall patrons in the immediate area in and outside Macy's. Officer Falconer was aware of their proximity. Officer Falconer was justified in his belief that deadly force was necessary to protect himself, others near him, and all other people in the area from great bodily harm or death. Since the actions of Dahir Ahmed Adon led to this justifiable use of deadly force by Officer Falconer, no criminal charges will be filed against Officer Falconer. Investigation into the actions of Dahir Ahmed Adan continues, and therefore no other information in the file is available for public release. Thank you to Chief Blair Anderson for the detailed work in the investigation of these events. 126 police, fire, and emergency personnel from 13 different agencies responded. There were 112 identified witnesses. The public safety response of Officer Falconer, the St. Cloud Police Department, and the many local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies assisting that night preserved lives, prevented other injuries, and bolstered confidence in our public safety system.
Good morning. My name is Rick Thornton. I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI in Minnesota. It is somewhat unusual for the FBI to discuss an ongoing terrorism investigation. However, after consultation with the United States Attorney Andy Luger, we felt an update of the federal investigation would be appropriate at this time. Additionally, we felt the community would benefit by sharing this information today. I want to start by describing the investigative process thus far. The St. Cloud Police Department and the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force have interviewed more than 180 individuals to include victims, witnesses, family, friends, and associates of Dahir Adan. We have searched for, retrieved, and viewed hundreds of hours of video from more than 100 cameras in 23 different establishments in the Crossroads Center, various businesses along Adan's route of travel, and other contributors. We have analyzed and reviewed more than 780 gigabytes of data from multiple computers and other electronic devices. We are conducting an extensive review of his social media and other online activity, analyzing his historical communication activity and physical movements. We have searched multiple physical locations and with the assistance of the United States Attorney's Office have secured and searched numerous subpoenas and search warrants on electronic facilities. Many of the steps I've described are ongoing. Specifically, we continue to review his electronic media and his digital footprint. In addition, Dahir Adan's iPhone is locked, and we are in the process of assessing our legal and technical options to gain access to this device and the data it may contain. Because this investigation is active, much of what we are discussing is dynamic in nature, and the evidence, facts, and our ability to draw any conclusions will continue to evolve. Within the last several months, Dahir Adan became interested in Islam and began reading the Quran. We were told Adan had not previously shown an interest in religion. Adan also encouraged some female relatives to become more religiously observant. There are reports he withdrew from his network of friends. He became less interested in playing basketball and Xbox, which previously had been his activities of choice. He went from being an excellent student with a high GPA to flunking out of college almost overnight. Some of his friends noted he would become agitated at things which in the past would not have bothered him. He lost a significant amount of weight during this period. And finally, we have numerous credible witness accounts of him asking victims during the attack if they were Muslim, and at least one instance yelling Allah Akbar while stabbing one of the victims, and others heard him yelling Islam, Islam during the attack. These behaviors individually may not be significant. However, the totality of Dahir Adan's behavior and the actions suggest he may have been radicalized either with the influence of others or on his own. An increased interest in Islam is not in and of itself evidence of radicalization. However, when combined with the other indicators and Adan's violent rampage on September 17th, one could reasonably conclude his actions were consistent with the philosophies of violent radical Islamic groups. With respect to a rumor which has circulated in the local community alleging Adan was provoked by unidentified individuals at the mall causing or contributing to this attack, there is no credible evidence to support this rumor. In fact, there is compelling evidence to suggest this was a premeditated act on the part of Dahir Adan. I would like to share with you some of the facts we used in our assessment of Adan's premeditation. The investigative team developed a detailed timeline of Adon's activities and movements on September 17th, which will be useful in the assessment of his premeditation. At approximately 3 p.m., he arrived home from work. Although he was not scheduled to return to work until 10 p.m. that evening, he did not change out of his security guard uniform. When asked by family why he was still in his uniform and not sleeping, which was his normal routine, he told him he had work to do tonight. At 6:44 p.m., Adon texted his boss to inform him he could not work that evening. From 7:48 to 7:54 p.m., Adon was in the Super America convenience store where he was known as a regular customer. And when the store employee said to Dahir, "See you later," Dahir's reply was, "You won't be seeing me again." At 8:02 p.m., Adon returned to his residence. 5 minutes later, at 8:07 p.m., Adon left his residence en route to the Crossroads Center. The driving distance from his residence to the mall is 1.4 miles, and this drive takes approximately 5 minutes in normal traffic. Just for situational awareness. Oops. Okay. General area of the apartment. Yellow line is the route to the mall over here. I'll talk about some other things here shortly. At 8:09 p.m., while en route to the Crossroads Center, Dahir Adon was involved in a hit and run with a bicycle. This happened, as you can see, fairly close to his residence right after starting off on the route to the center. You see that's the windshield of the car. You can see the cracked windshield. His Toyota Camry was damaged, and the cyclist's glasses ended up on the hood, between the hood and the windshield of the Camry, which you can see in this picture. It's the windshield of the car. This is the hood of the car. Those are glasses that sort of rest in that little well. Those were the rider of the bicycle's glasses that were found in the car once the car was retrieved at the shopping mall. Adon did not stop to determine the extent of injuries or render any aid to the rider. At 8:10 p.m., Adon was observed running a red light at the intersection of 29th and 2nd. Again, you see the location there. At approximately 8:13 p.m., 6 minutes after leaving his residence, Adon arrived at the Crossroads Center and parked in the south lot. See the mall at the top there, and the vehicle was parked were captioned. At 8:14 p.m., the first of the 95 911 calls was received. Finally, Dahir Adon arrived at Crossroads Center wearing his security guard uniform and in possession of 2 knives, which were similar to the knives found in his parents' apartment. Let's picture the knives from the scene. We know from video evidence he was carrying at least one of these knives in the side pants pocket while running through the mall. As you can see, these are not the types of knives that someone would routinely carry for self-defense or could safely carry in a pocket. Upon arrival at the Crossroads Center, Adon began attacking victims before he even entered the mall, to include stabbing a pregnant victim. Chief Anderson will now provide details on Adon's actions in the mall.
I will give you a visual of the attacks that took place in the mall leading up to the attacker's confrontation with Officer Falconer, and then I will turn it back over to our esteemed county attorney, Janelle Kendall. I again want to reiterate the mayor's comments that our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. And I also want to take this opportunity to give high praise and thanks to all the men and women of the St. Cloud Police Department, and particularly our Criminal Investigations Unit. They have worked tirelessly to uphold one of our foundational principles, which is transparency, and that is why we are able to share the information that we can with you that was learned during this investigation. This is a diagram of a part of the mall from south to north. Crossroads Mall is approximately 940,000 square feet, so it's a tremendous amount of space. And the numbered dots that you see are all victims. And as you can see, the path there, clearly he started on the southeast side of the mall and went straight north. Our investigators canvassed this mall store by store to recover whatever video there may have been of these attacks. And one of the things we learned is that the Crossroads Shopping Center itself does not have video surveillance, but individual stores obviously do for obvious reasons. There will be no audio with these videos because the primary purpose for them is to detect shoplifters. And so there's no audio with these videos. And so approximately halfway down this path here, the attacker confronted a store clerk in Unique Electronics. And these videos are going to show 3 times for you. So the first time, I will be silent while you watch, and I will let you watch again and describe what it is you're seeing, although it'll be obvious. And then we'll show it a 3rd time. Next one. Oh, we've got to go back. I apologize. We've got to switch to the video mode over here. We have our skilled IT folks on that. Show again.
No, it'll keep going.
It's pretty obvious. The clerk obviously hears the commotion and goes to the door to see what's going on, and there's the attacker. And he's asked if he's Muslim. He doesn't answer, and the attack begins. The knife actually bends when he takes the second swipe at him because of where he hit him in his back. And of course, he's able to scramble out of there and run to safety. That's where the knife bends right there, and he reaches for the other one. Had we not canvassed store by store, which is an obvious thing to do during an investigation, we would not have known about that particular victim. We did not know about this particular victim until we went to the store and asked if they had video, and the store owner advised us that not only did they have some video, but one of their employees had been attacked. I'm going to turn it over now to our Stearns County Attorney, Janelle Kendall, to give you a comprehensive visual of the other video that we have.
Right down the hall from Unique Electronics is Northwoods Candy Emporium. You can go ahead and roll that one. You can see people running by. This one again is in slow motion. Again, this is they're trying to find shoplifters and store thefts. They're not designed for this, but you can see people running by. An employee comes out. This is about 40 to 50 feet down the hall from what you just saw at Unique Electronics, where he actually goes into the store and stabs the employee. This is right down the hall, so let's look at this again. Because you can see what's going on, that they are hearing the hollering and screaming and yelling as he's coming down the hallway and engaging people. Sometimes he's asking them, "Are you Muslim?" Sometimes he's just stabbing them. And as I said in the letter, these stabs are to the face, the neck, up in the upper part of the body. One is in the side of the head. So you can see people reacting to this, and what the witness statements say is that there's a lot of screaming and yelling. People are saying, "Take cover." You can hear the store doors coming down. And when you watch this the third time, you can see up in the window, that would be on this side, you can actually see the knife in his hand through the clear window on the side here. There's the knife. Can we go back to the diagram? Going back to this diagram then, this is Unique Electronics, and up higher is the Northwoods Candy Store as you're going into Target. So about halfway up there in the 910, there's a father and a son that are 910 right there outside Unique Electronics, where he stabs both of them and then goes up to the Candy Emporium. As you can see, run towards that door, screen comes down, crash, he then takes off. The Target doors were already closed, the glass doors there as you come into Target, because they heard the commotion going on in the mall and had already closed those doors by the time he got there. So he headed off toward Bath & Body Works and Macy's. You have a victim that's coming inside the doors there that is also stabbed right before Adon approaches Officer Falconer, who is marked as number 13 here. He's inside Bath & Body Works. He's already made his purchase. He hears these loud noises coming from behind him, and he turns around, and as he comes to the edge of the store, Adon approaches him and asks him if he's Muslim. He says no. Adon does not stab him, does not move forward toward him in any way, but as he turns away from Officer Falconer, he observes the knives in both hands and describes them as in each hand and the knife blade up against the wrist. So he immediately tells him, "Stop, I'm a police officer, put down the weapons," and Adon takes off into Macy's. Next picture. Next picture. Next one.
But you got the physical.
Oh, I've got it. Okay. This is the area of Macy's where he runs in, and we're going to look specifically at what happens in this corner, because as you see in Macy's, there's it's mainly clothing that's down in this area, but you're going to see him come in this way. The 3 videos that we have, again, are designed for store security. So you have one that's facing this way. You have another one that's primarily looking at this area of checkout, and we have blurred out the photos so that you can't see who the people are there just doing their business and Macy's and working at Macy's that night. But you're going to see they're over in here, and then you're going to see the encounter happen primarily in this area. There we go. The red are where the bullets and the bullet casings are found. As I said, there were 10 shots fired, 6 of them hit Adon. Number 1 is where the body ultimately lands. Number 2 is the straight knife that is found near his body, and you'll see in the videos he has that in his hand until way at the end. Number 3 is the bent knife that you saw in the Ultimate Electronics. So we've got that left back in there. Also his eyeglasses that he was wearing are somewhere back in there. But as you'll see with the round of red dots down here, this is where the first shots are fired. Then you're going to see him go around this circle again, and you're going to see additional shots fired as he comes at the officer the second time. And what you're going to see from the video camera coming in this way is you'll see that he comes at the officer the second time with the knives in his hands, and then he starts actually backing into the bullets, and you'll see that on the video. We're going to show the video 3 times. I'm going to let you watch it the first time and then point out the things that correspond with this diagram. These videos will all be available to you when we're done here. You'll first see Adon run in and Officer Falconer immediately behind him with his gun drawn. See him getting down on the floor. Falconer's got his gun pointed at him. He's down on the floor. Up he comes. First shots have been fired. Officer Falconer is back up. And you'll see Adon start to move. See the officer display his badge to the people who are there, and what the witnesses tell us is that continually during this time he's saying, "I'm a police officer, drop your weapons." 12 separate witnesses describe that and describe seeing the knives in his hands. See these crawling on the floor, advancing, and he's up and he's at the officer again. See the knife still in his hands? Considered decision was made whether to show this portion of the video. To show this for this reason. He still has the knife in his hands, and as you're going to see, he's going to get up a third time. What the witnesses tell us that happens after this video is not only does he get up on all fours here, but he goes a little farther down and there's one of the big store displays, and he tries to climb up on that store display and stand up for a third time. That sign then falls over and he falls on the ground at that time. Let's watch that again. Again, the witnesses are telling us that they can see the knives in his hands because of the quality of the video and what it's not aimed at. It's aimed down at that till that's in that area, so you're seeing things that are off in the corner. But I want to point out as they come into the other screens what we can see here. Coming in. And then here's Falconer behind him. And you can see Falconer coming up there. And quite quickly, he does get down on the ground. He's still got a knife in each hand, but he is down, and then very quickly up and at the officer. The officer describes backpedaling so fast as he came at him that was why he fell over. But at this point, reacting as a peace officer, he continues to have his gun pointed at him, but he reaches in his pocket and pulls out his badge. He's in plain clothes. Mr. Adon is in a security uniform. Some of the things that the witnesses describe are we have a person in a security uniform, but we have a person in plain clothes who's shooting at that person. So he displayed his badge so that people could understand, as he was stating to them repeatedly, I am a police officer. And now circling around again, as you can see him moving on the floor toward him before he gets up. Still with the knives in his hands. And charges at him again. And as you see this picked up, you can see the shots being fired, but then he actually starts to back into the bullet. As stated in the letter, 2 of the gunshots to Mr. Adon are in his back as he is backing there toward the officer, and you see how close he gets to him. And again, much debate about whether to show this portion of the video. This is not something that we would normally show. But in the interest of transparency, this is all the video. that we have of Mr. Adon inside the mall, and we're releasing it all to the public. It also shows that he still has the knife in his hand. They say what the witnesses tell us after he goes off the video is that he tries to get up again using the sign as balance. No further shots were fired here. The shots were fired when he gets up the first time. When he gets up and comes at the officer the second time, there were no shots fired after that. No shots fired here. As is also noted in the letter, we have 120-some people responding from 13 different agencies. Many of those were Gold Cross Ambulance. Mr. Adon was provided medical assistance. After this happened, officers were there in about 4 minutes, and the ambulance arrived shortly thereafter. And looking at an authorized use of deadly force, as you can see in these videos, we have Adon charging Officer Falconer twice with knives in his hands, and even a third time, still with the knife in his hand, trying to get toward him. At this point, Officer Falconer is stationed right there at the end of Macy's because he knows there are still more people outside in the mall. You can see the people down below here that are watching this. The statements that they give, again, there are 12 witnesses there that are talking about what the officer is saying, what Adon is doing, what they can observe with the knives in his hands. And through the first set of shots, they're actually still standing there before many of them leave. They describe the display of the badge, but then you can actually see that in the video. And here again, why I analyze this both as the reaction of a licensed peace officer as well as an average citizen. This is the reaction of a licensed peace officer. And again, these videos will be made available to you when we're done here.
I just want to add one thing before Mayor Kleis comes back up to give his closing remarks. I've heard from various sources, from people, whether they be advocates or whomever, with respect to police reform, that the 21-foot rule should probably not be taught anymore. And what that is a training tactic for law enforcement, so that if a person is coming at you to attack you with an edged weapon, a knife, or what have you, as you can see, it doesn't take very long. And I would venture to guess that that was probably more than 21 feet between the attacker and Officer Falconer when he first confronted him inside Macy's. And I want you to pay very close attention to that part of it for that reason only. 21 feet can be closed very, very quickly, as you just saw multiple times, and you will see again. So to those people who want to eradicate the 21-foot rule, I say no. And I'll turn it over to Mayor Kleis.
Thank you, Chief. The reason we are holding this press conference, or held this press conference today, is because, as we've said from the beginning, within hours after the attack took place, that we will be transparent and we'll have information when it's available. It is available today, and we also said on that day we would not release any information that would in any way jeopardize the investigation. From this day forward, the investigation continues with the FBI. The FBI, all questions and inquiries as that investigation continues from the FBI should be referred to the FBI. As of now, the St. Cloud Police Department and the county attorney's office, that piece is complete. Our folks stand ready to assist if necessary, but it's now in the hands of the FBI. As the county attorney has mentioned, the videos that you have seen will be available outside of this room at the conclusion of this press conference, in addition to the written comments of Stearns County Attorney Janelle Kendall also. I can tell you the response, not only the response of the 127 first responders who were there that night, but that continued response and investigation of the hundreds of individuals who have been part of this investigation since that in the last 19 days, in the last less than 3 weeks, has been a tremendous support and collaboration. The work between the St. Cloud Police Department, Stearns County Attorney's Office, and the FBI has been coordinated with tremendous collaboration. And I want to thank that collaboration and the folks that you see here today in that work that will continue. I can tell you, as a community, as I mentioned from the outset, this community is a strong community. And this community is a safe community. And it's a safe community because of the men and women who, on every day, you've seen in the images that you've seen in the response, but I can tell you the commitment that our law enforcement has for this community, our first responders. We should be very proud of that effort and the work that they have done. They have clearly demonstrated, as they have many times before the last 19 days, their commitment to this community. But they clearly demonstrated that professionalism and their dedication to what they do. Very few people are willing to raise their hands and do what they do. They do it for our community, and we are grateful for what they do. We are grateful that they were there that night. We are very grateful that that off-duty police officer was in the mall that night. And this investigation, as we conclude now, any further questions, please refer to the FBI. Thank you for being here today.